Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. I've been hauling medical supplies for years, coast to coast, racking up more miles than I can remember. The open road's my home, but every now and then, something happens out there that makes you question if maybe there's things beyond headlights and painted lines. Maybe you already know what I mean if you've driven night after night, watching the world shrink down to a dashboard and the reach of your brights. I used to think I was impossible to shake. No ghost story, no scare on the CB ever really stuck with me. But there's one night, at a truck stop off I-40 near Santa Rosa, New Mexico, that I never talk about if I don't have a reason. It was late April, and a thunderstorm was rolling in. One of those with the kind of clouds that sit low and bruise the edge of the sky. The air was heavy, almost syrupy, and the wind kept changing directions, tugging at my rig as I pulled off at exit 229. I still remember the smell when I climbed down, rain on hot asphalt, the chemical bite of diesel, and somewhere underneath, the sharp tang of ozone thick in the air. Every sound echoed more than it should have, like the lot was carved into the storm itself, and the whole world had narrowed to this slab of concrete surrounded by black prairie. I parked next to a line of other semis. 2 tankers, a Walmart trailer, and a rusted Kenworth I'd seen somewhere out east but couldn't quite place. The sky was holding its breath, just waiting to split apart. I grabbed my duffel, locked up, and ducked inside the diner. The place had that familiar, worn-out feel. Chrome stools, sticky countertop, deep fryer haze that's part grease, part something untouchable, like old secrets clogging the air vents. There were only a dozen people inside, 3 waitresses, a couple off-duty cops, old guy by the jukebox, and the rest were drivers with that blank, tired-eyed look. I claimed a corner booth and sipped burnt coffee, eyes drifting to the window. Every so often, a flash of lightning would turn all the glass into mirrors, reflecting everyone back at themselves for a split second. It was at this point the chatter started to die down. A little thunder at first. Folks laughed it off. Then the sky ripped open and cold sheets of rain hit the diner so loud it was hard to hear yourself think. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered, buzzed, then shuddered again as if the storm was reaching tendrils down through the roof. I remember someone muttering about the generator, not liking lightning much, and I caught the waitress's nervous glance toward the kitchen. I tried not to think about it. Just kept my hands around the mug like I was holding on to something real. Then, it happened. Sharp pop. Everything went black. The kind of blackout where even the humming of machines cuts out and the silence is so thick you could almost chew it. My eyes felt useless for a moment, ears ringing with the last thunderclap. Some folks cursed, a few turned on their phone screens. The rain pounding on the roof was suddenly the loudest thing in the world. One of the cops said the generator should kick on, and for a few heartbeats, we all just waited. Sure enough, the backup sputtered to life, humming and coughing before giving the barest yellow glow. 10 seconds in, maybe a minute, and then nothing. Dead again. Just the lightning flickering every so often, making everyone's faces jump in ghostly stop motion. I started to get restless. A couple of drivers hustled outside, making jokes to mask the unease. Me, I figured I'd wait out the worst in my cab. At least I knew where I stood there. After 10 minutes, that felt like an hour. I wandered back out into the pounding storm, duffel slung over my shoulder, jacket pulled tight. Outside, it was just a wall of rain and the shine of lightning hitting the puddles in the lot. All the trucks sat silent, hulks in the downpour. It felt like I was stepping out of the world and into a dream that was turning against me. I got to my rig, climbed up, slammed the door, and checked my phone. No signal. No time on the dash. Everything dead. I settled in, listening to the rain hammer steel and glass. I tried to tell myself it was just a regular blackout, nothing to worry about, but I kept looking at the lot, waiting for those familiar artificial lights to blink on. Then came the knock. It was slow, too deliberate to mistake for rain. I figured someone needed help. Who wouldn't in that mess? Maybe jumper cables, directions, a place to get dry. Still, there was something odd about how calm it sounded, each tap spaced by a few seconds, even as the storm raged. I peeked out the side window, but the rain streaked everything into blurs. Figuring I might regret it, I unlocked the door, left the chain on, and cracked it open. There he was. At first, all I saw was the outline of a man in a rain poncho, his face almost invisible, lost in the shadows of the hood. He was about my height, maybe thinner, though under all the plastic I couldn't tell. He always looked a little too still, like he was waiting for something. "You got a ride east?" he asked, voice muffled but strangely calm. His accent didn't fit New Mexico, almost flat. Not southern, not Midwest, just empty. I felt an urge to say yes, or even to offer him a cup of coffee, but something inside me locked up. I looked past him, squinting through the rain, expecting to see taillights or maybe a car broken down near the pumps. All I saw was darkness, empty, thick and unbroken by headlights. "I'm not heading east tonight," I said, trying to sound casual, not like my heart was pounding out of my chest. "I'm shut down until sunup, sorry." He just nodded once, a slow, deliberate bob, and without another word, turned and vanished into the rain. I shut the door hard, locked it, double-checked, sat back, adrenaline running cold. I kept thinking, it's just a guy stuck in the rain. Happens all the time. But then, why hadn't I heard him walk up or seen another vehicle pull in? There weren't any footprints when I looked out. Just rain erasing everything. Minutes stretched into hours. At some point, the rain let up, but the darkness stayed thick, heavy as a blanket. The storm felt like it was waiting for something. Every little ping from cooling metal, every creak from the wind had me tense. Lightning stuttered again. In the flash, I caught a glimpse. Somebody standing behind the far fuel pump. The poncho, the same guy. He didn't move. He wasn't even facing me. He just stood, hands at his side, waiting. Another bolt, and he was gone. Then, silence. The kind of heavy silence that makes your own breathing sound loud. The next time the knock came, it wasn't on the door. This time it came from the bunk window on the far side of the cab. It was softer now, almost probing. I froze, afraid to draw the curtain. I should have started the engine, pulled out right then, but the storm had left everything so wet and slick I worried about spinning out, or just making a fool of myself if it was nothing. After the third round of knocks, soft and polite, I sat up, wiped the fog off the window, and stared out. At first, nothing but my own reflection. Smeared, pale, eyes wide. Then, as my vision adjusted, I saw him, face pressed nearly flat to the glass, eyes open but empty, unblinking, and in the split second lightning flashed again. I saw his pale reflection staring back, but the rain on the window wasn't falling on him. He was dry, like the storm just moved around where he stood. That's when I knew something was dead wrong. Something wasn't meant to be there. I hit the horn, no sound. My radio was dead too, just static. I kept the curtain drawn after that, feigning calm, willing the morning to come. I can't remember falling asleep, but sometime after dawn, when grey light finally bled through the clouds, everything felt normal again. The power in the lot flickered timidly back on. My dash lit up, phone buzzed awake. I looked around. No sign of the man. Just empty puddles and the usual half-forgotten trash blowing between the pumps. I drove straight into town, running on fumes and nerves. Later that week, when the dispatcher called to say I'd left a fuel card behind. I mentioned what I'd seen to the state trooper working the station. He went quiet, said, "You didn't stop at exit 229, did you?" I told him I had. "That section's been closed off at night since the accident, you know. Guy was walking, whole highway went dark, didn't see him till too late. Folks say he still flags trucks, thinking someone will stop and help him out. But no one who picks him up ever comes back." Maybe it was a warning. Maybe it was just a trick of the storm. But I don't look for lost hitchhikers in the rain anymore. I still hear that polite, deliberate knocking sometimes when the night gets quiet and the rain writes its code on the glass. If you're still listening, you probably enjoy stories like this. A like or comment helps keep them alive. Thanks. I'm Amanda. I haul food cross-country, usually solo. People always ask if I'm scared being a woman driving alone at night out here, but honestly, the open road makes sense to me in a way towns never did. Well-lit truck stops, midnight radio, the endless sound of tires chewing up blacktop. It's all comfort. But last July, in Iowa, I learned sometimes the scariest thing isn't what you see. It's what you almost did. I'd been driving since sunset, out of Des Moines heading north. Humidity so thick it pressed against the windshield. The semis around me were rare that night. Everyone must have seen the heat warnings and bunked down early. I figured I could make it to the next rest area, around mile marker 312, park between a pair of beef haulers, and grab a short sleep until it cooled off. It was one of those classic Midwestern rest areas. Wide, mostly gravel lot, a handful of ancient vending machines huddled under flickering sodium lights by the bathrooms, and about a half-dozen rigs sleeping with their lights on. I could hear cicadas shrilling from the cornfields, their buzz competing with the psych-out hum of my tires cooling after shutdown. The air smelled like cut grass, diesel, and fertilizer. The rest area felt deserted, except for two other truckers, one with a chrome Peterbilt, freshly washed, the other a battered old Volvo with an out-of-state plate. Saw a few lights blinking from inside their cabs. Not much else. I put my seat all the way back, pulled my cap down, and let my mind drift, feeling that tired but satisfied ache after running hard all day. That's when the first weird thing happened. Right after 2 a.m., all the exterior lights blinked. Just blinked once, like someone taking a snapshot, then came back up. I ignored it. Could be anything. Then, 30 seconds later, they flickered again and didn't come back. All at once, the world outside my cab dropped into absolute black. I sat still, letting my eyes adjust. The darkness was total. A far-off highway whisper, radio static, and the relentless buzz of cicadas. I forced my window down a couple inches, wanting air, and immediately the sweat started rolling down my back. After a while, with nothing but starlight and my flashlight for comfort, I noticed things. Like how the darkness crowded right up to the glass, pushing against it. Every now and then I caught the faintest movement, a flashlight bobbing between the rows. I thought maybe it was security, but there was something odd about the way it moved, never pointed at anything, just drifting slowly, making loops near the trucks. Around 3 a.m., I heard it. Footsteps on gravel, crunching behind the trailer. I sat up, heart pounding. My walkie on the dash hissed and popped, picking up some static, maybe a voice, but it wasn't my channel. 2 words came through. "Don't answer." Then a burst of static. Okay, maybe someone was screwing around. Maybe not. I locked the doors, turned off any interior lights, and clutched my phone. Signal was dead, of course. I watched, waited, focused on my side mirror, where the darkness flowed around the truck like water. The footsteps started circling the rig. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Gravel crunch, pause, another crunch. I'll never forget that sound. Not fast, not sneaky. more like someone was counting their paces, marking a path around me over and over. I forced myself to peek outside. Nothing but the outline of the next truck's trailer, hulking in the dark. Then my CB sparked up again. Just more static, except for one faint phrase, almost like a laugh. "You hear them too?" My mouth went dry. At this point, I was desperate for proof I wasn't losing it. I grabbed my flashlight, started to climb into the sleeper, and pointed it across the dash. That's when I saw them, handprints, smeared across my windshield, as if someone pressed oily hands flat against the glass, 5 or 6 times in a loose arc. Water droplets outlined each print. They looked fresh. The weird part, there hadn't been rain in weeks, just endless heat. And then the knocking started. Not on the doors, but on the trailer itself, down low toward the rear axles. Dull, thumping knocks, spaced out, like whoever was doing it didn't care if I heard and didn't care if I waited all night. Everything in me wanted to bolt, but the darkness out there seemed thick enough to drown in. I kept the doors locked, clutching my collapsible baton, tried not to breathe too loud. Finally, just before dawn, the lights all blinked back to life in a single, painful glare. The birds started up in the treetops. For a moment, I thought it was just a dream. I got out, stretched my legs, hoping for a word with one of the other drivers. The Pete was gone. The Volvo guy rolled down his window and squinted at me when I asked if he'd heard footsteps or seen the lights. He shook his head, mumbled something about a dead battery, said he'd been asleep the whole time. My trailer was still sealed, but the handprints were gone, replaced by faint dust stains. I checked the back regardless. When I swung the doors open, just to convince myself it was over, I found muddy footprints marching across my stacked flour sacks inside, bare, wide, and so fresh they were still damp in the Iowa heat. I never park at that rest area anymore. In fact, I don't like stopping in Iowa at all after dark. Sometimes, on dead radio nights, I hear echoes on the CB, gravel crunches, static whispers, footsteps from somewhere my headlights can't reach. And every time I tell myself, don't answer. My name's Cal, and I've been in the trucking game for 2 decades, mostly along the back roads and state highways nobody talks about. I always said nothing phases me. But that night at the old double-decker motel off Highway 70, I learned some places keep their secrets behind doors nobody should open. That Tennessee stretch is just 2 hours past Nashville. But it feels farther. The truck stop was older. Faded signs, neon humming, and a 2-story motel tacked on out back. Place had been around since the 60s, judging by the rotting billboard and the way the air smelled of diesel and mildew. I'd been going almost 14 hours, so I figured I'd splurge on a real bed, not just the back of the cab. The lobby was long and narrow, carpet damp with years of humidity, and the guy behind the desk barely looked up when I handed over my ID. He slid me a brass room key, not even a card, told me 2nd floor at the end. Never said another word. The room was exactly what you'd picture. Hairline cracks in the ceiling, faded flower print curtains, bed sheets with cigarette burns. The AC rattled, pushing out air that felt damp and somehow colder than outside. I set my boots by the bathroom door, left my duffel beside the bed, and tried to relax. But something about that room felt wrong. Maybe the way condensation dripped from the window, or the smell of old cleaning chemicals trying to cover up something that had lived there too long. As I laid down, I heard footsteps echo down the hallway, slow, dragging, with a slight pause every few feet. Someone walking, maybe a night shift worker doing rounds. The steps never passed my door, just hovered nearby, pacing back and forth. Then the lights flickered, a buzzing, flickering noise overhead, and the room snapped into darkness. I grabbed my phone, but it was almost dead. The only light was the red glow of my GPS charger. casting weird shadows across the chipped nightstand. The footsteps got louder after the blackout. No other sounds, just the steady scrape and pause, scrape and pause. After a few minutes I heard breathing. Faint, low, like someone right outside exhaling in deliberate bursts. My stomach knotted, a feeling I hadn't had in years. I pressed my face to the door's peephole, expecting empty hall, but all I saw was darkness and the vague outline of what could have been a shoulder, but melted away if I blinked. I tried calling the front desk. No answer. Just a half-dial tone and the click of a line gone dead. After that, I sat on the bed for what felt like forever, straining to hear anything else. Finally, curiosity, or maybe plain stubborn foolishness, got the better of me. I stepped into the hallway, flashlight raised. The corridor stretched out, carpet patterned with swirling stains. Doors locked tight. As I passed, I noticed something odd. All the room doors were cracked open an inch, as if left ajar by guests in a hurry. No noise came from any of them, and the hallway smelled sharply of bleach and something sour. My skin crawled, but I made my way to the lobby. The whole place looked abandoned. Key hooks empty, guest book open to the page I'd signed. Outside, the lights in the truck lot were back on. Inside, the motel felt unburied, lost in time. No sign of the clerk, just that silent, yawning emptiness behind the desk. I hustled back out to my truck, breath clouding in the cool air, clicked the door shut behind me, feeling myself relax as the familiar plastic and vinyl of my rig closed around me. My old CB hissed to life, static at first, then quiet as someone sitting behind me. My name. Cal. Just my name, whispered twice over the airwaves. I spun around, expecting to see someone in the shadows, but the cab was empty. Next morning, the sun came up, sticky hot. The motel was still there, but the doors were shut tight, the parking lot empty. I checked the guest book through the glass. My name. Faded already, the only entry for that night. They tore down that old place a few months later, turned it into a strip of cheap storage units, but every once in a while, I'll pass by at night and see the old neon sign flicker back on, just for a moment. Sometimes, if I listen real close, I swear I can hear footsteps behind me. 1, 2, pause. That's when I lock my doors and drive just a little faster. My friends call me Ray, and I've been hauling timber in the Northwest since I dropped out of tech school. Seen blizzards, landslides, collapsed bridges. Nothing gets to me like the quiet after a storm. But this story, I keep close to my heart. Some stops you don't pass through twice. Late last December, I was running behind schedule, tracking north into the mountains of Oregon. It was one of those steamed-up gray days where the snow comes fast and heavy, and the highway looks like a memory you're trying too hard to recall. I knew the forecast called for a grid failure, lines down all over the county, but I figured I'd make it over the pass before anything went bad. I pulled off at a tiny service station. One pump, sagging roof, and a single ancient lamp buzzing softly above the awning. A kid in the office, must have been 20, gave me the side eye but rang me up for coffee and half a stale sandwich. "Power might go soon," he mumbled, "so best get settled." He nodded at the old concrete lot out back, just barely shoveled, snow already building in 1/2-foot mounds. I locked up, cranked the heater, and planned to nap for a few hours till the storm eased. The world outside turned soft and pale, headlights barely cutting the gloom. The station went dark all at once. Not just the lights, but the sign, pumps, everything. 1 second, faint glow. The next, pitch black and dead quiet. At first, it seemed peaceful, The kind of silence you only get in heavy snow, every sound muted so even your breath feels too loud. But after a while, the emptiness started gnawing at me. My truck shook once, then twice, as if wind tried to lift it right off the ground. When I looked up, the kid who'd been working was gone. No truck, no tracks out front, the only footprints led around to the station supply shed, then vanished. I felt that creeping, animal sense of not being alone. Used my lantern to check the lot. In the blue-white light, everything seemed normal at first, but when I got back to my rig, my glove box was open and the floor was wet. My thermos lay sideways, coffee pooling against the door. More than anything, it was that weird sense of intrusion. Like someone had sat in my seat, breathed my air, then slipped out without leaving a trace. I started to doubt myself, but every small thing felt off. My shoes, lined up military perfect, only now one was slightly out of angle. That's when I heard it, the faintest tapping, coming from underneath the truck bed. At first I thought it was just ice, maybe a broken mud flap swinging above the tire, but the sound repeated, rhythm steady, human. With the snow blowing sideways, I climbed down and checked the undercarriage. No sign of anything. But then I noticed something strange. Footprints circling the rig, over and over, wide, shallow, as if someone walked fast, looping the truck in tighter and tighter circles. But only one set, the prints getting clearer with each pass, until they just stopped. Midway through, the last step set into fresh powder, the heels scuffed as if the person had been dragged forward. Then nothing. Went back inside, shaken. Every few minutes, wind would buffet the truck, shake the mirrors, but that sense, like someone watching, never left. I dozed on and off till sunrise. When the sky turned pink, I stepped out. The footprints from the night before were all but buried. Only the last one, nearest the cab, was visible, halfway down, pressed deep, but with no trail leading away. I drove off as fast as snow allowed, not stopping till I saw daylight hit the valley. A week later, passing through again, that station was dark, window smashed, pump hoses frozen in place. One light above the awning flickered on, just for a moment. The same faint bulb that hadn't come back on since that night. Felt like it was blinking goodbye, or maybe just warning me to keep moving. Now, whenever the snow starts to fall heavy, I keep the windows up and the radio loud, because in the silence that follows a lost light, you can hear anything. Even the footfalls of someone you know can never catch up. Some folks say when the power goes out, it's not just the lights that vanish. It's the safety everyone takes for granted. Truckers love to joke about bad food, lonely highways, and stubborn rigs, but nobody laughs when the darkness closes in. Not really. After those nights, I started to look different at the miles ahead. Every empty lot, every battered motel or dead highway light feels like an invitation for something to slip through. A shadow, a memory, or maybe just your own fear wearing a new face. Sometimes, when the road is quiet and the static creeps in over the CB, I still hear things. Knuckles rapping on glass, footsteps on gravel, my own name, whispering out of the speaker when nobody's supposed to be there. If you made it through the darkness, thanks for listening. And if those knocks ever come for you, don't answer. Just keep moving. Good night.